Here's Golf to Go with Frank LaRosa.
Welcome to People Who Play the Game. Welcome to the Golf to Go radio show. I'm Frank LaRosa, just thrilled to death to welcome our guest today. Nancy Lopez is a former professional golfer, as many of you know. She began on tour in 1977 and was probably the greatest female golfer during that decade. Won almost 50 golf tournaments, LPGA tournaments, 3 major championships. Her resume is longer than we have time to talk about. Nancy, it's just a thrill to have you here. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Look forward to it.
Well, Nancy, one of the reasons we're talking is that you're going to be coming out here to Sacramento on October 19th and 20th for the First Tee Invitational. You are going to be our honorary chair this year, and so we will have lots of time to talk. We will do an interview on a VIP dinner at Del Paso on October 19th, and then you'll be at the golf tournament the next day, October 20th at Cala Verdera, and we'll also have a chance for an interview. So you're going to get tired of talking with me, I'm sure, but we'll try to keep it interesting as we move on.
Okay, sounds good.
Nancy, what is it about the First Tee that excites you about being out here for that event?
Well, I was part of the First Tee program in Albany, Georgia, when I lived there many years ago. I had a hospice tournament right before that, and any of the celebrities that came to my hospice event, they stayed over and they would go to the First Tee with me to, just to reach out to these young kids who love the game. And, First Tee gives them an opportunity to learn the game, to learn life lessons, and to the thing about golf is very expensive. So if we can get these kids to a First Tee program and give them the opportunity to open the door for them to play a game that is such a great game, but also, when I was growing up, it pretty much kept me off the streets and kept me, focused on something really positive and, just probably helped me not get in too much trouble. Not that I was the kind of kid that would get into a lot of trouble.
That seemed to work out pretty good for you.
Yes, it did.
Nancy, where did the love for the game come from? What was the first time you had a club in your hand, and what was that like?
Well, my mom and dad played when I first started. My dad was really a good amateur player. He had like a 3 handicap at a municipal golf course, and my mom basically just did it for the exercise. She wasn't a good player, and I was almost 8 years old when I was walking around with them on the golf course, because back in those days, families didn't hire nannies and babysitters. You always went with your mom and dad. And as I walked around with my mom and dad, it was just fun to be there. And I always tell people my most favorite thing in golf at that time was walking in my dad's golf shoes, with the cleats, the spikes that we used to have, and walking on the pavement, because it made such a great crunchy, crackly sound that I just loved. And so I pretty much wore my dad's golf spikes out when I was walking around in them. And that was really the first thing I loved about golf, was that sound of my dad's shoes on pavement. But as I walked around with them, my dad finally just handed me a golf club. He was my only teacher. He owned an auto body repair shop, so he wasn't a professional. And he was a Hispanic guy that had this really strong Spanish accent. He was just the cutest thing. And when he handed me the golf club, all I remember is him telling me, "Nancy, every time you swing, make connection." So that was pretty much what I did. Every time I swung it, I tried to make contact with it, and eventually I did. And it was such a great feeling. And I think my dad was really, his goal was to help me love the game. And then I think it was pretty much easy from that point on.
Well, you loved the game early, and the game loved you. You won the New Mexico Women's Amateur at the age of 12. I mean, that's remarkable.
Yeah, my dad put me in a New Mexico Women's Amateur starting at age 10. I didn't qualify for championship flight at that time, but at age 11 I did, and then at age 12 I was able to win. And I beat a player named Mary Bryan who used to do Golf Channel, and I was very young, 12, and she was I think 21. It was a 36-hole match on the final day, and I ended up winning 9 and 8. So I played really well. We played the New Mexico South course in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was a tough golf course. and I was probably shooting around 75 at that time. So, match play made it a little bit easier, I think, when you played, when you weren't shooting those low scores, but yet you could take a few chances and be able to, beat the player you're playing by just going for a few more things. And it was really a lot of fun. And Mary O'Brien was such a nice person to me because here I was, 12 years old. Most of the older ladies didn't want me playing in the New Mexico Women's State Amateur, but she was very kind to me. And unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago. But she became a good friend of mine, not just through Golf Channel, but playing on the tour. And just, Mary O'Brien was just one of my favorite people.
Did you have any notion at the time, or did your dad that, gee, professional golf might be something, that makes sense for you? I mean, at 12 years old, that's.
I don't know if my dad thought about me playing professional golf at that time, but I know, there were a lot of rules back then in amateur golf. And as I played in that event and won it, the press was asking me, "Are you thinking about turning professional?" And you pretty much couldn't say, "Yes, I would love to try to be a professional," because you were almost declaring yourself a professional. And you couldn't do that back then. So I knew that I couldn't do that. I just said, no, I never thought about it. So and I didn't at age 12. I mean, I'm still playing with my Barbie dolls and probably still sucking my thumb. So I don't know if I really thought about that.
I keep thinking about your dad's advice. Make a connection. That's pretty good every time you hit the ball.
Yeah.
That brings it down to a simple thought. Well,
Yeah.
you did turn professional, and if I'm not mistaken, your first year you were 20 years old, maybe, or
Hmm.
about that. Um, you kind of bounced on the scene in pretty rapid fire. You won 9 tournaments that first year, and you won 5 in a row, and you ended up being not only the LPGA Rookie of the Year, but the LPGA Player of the Year. And as I mentioned, pretty much the game's best player for the next decade or so. That's pretty
Well,
exciting.
it was exciting for me because, get out on the tour and pretty much I was doing outings on Monday. I signed with IMG, Mark McCormick, and signed up for all these outings on Monday to make $500 of an appearance, just basically to keep myself on the tour. And my dad wanted to help me. And I said, "Dad, you did a lot of stuff in my amateur career. There's no reason for you to spend any more money." So I'm on my own. Excuse me. I signed up with IMG and I started doing these outings on Monday and for $500, which was a lot of money. But of course, then I started playing well. I finished second in my first 3 LPGA events on tour after July of '77 when I got my card. And so I started making a little money, and that was good. I remember I was second in the U.S. Women's Open at Hazeltine to Hollis Stacy. And the first check they gave me was $17,000, and I was like, not $17,000, sorry, $7,500. And I thought I was rich. I was so excited to get this check. And Mr. McCormick was the one that pretty much sponsored me. He said, "We'll help you. When you make some money, just pay us back." And that's pretty much what I did. But I kept that check for about 2 months because I kept looking at it and didn't want to get rid of it. And so Mr. McCormick, they called me and I said, "You need to send the check so you can pay your bills." So I started making some money right off the bat, which really helped a lot. I think it took a lot of pressure off me to, go out and play every week while I was making this money. And when I started winning, of course, my outing, the $500 outings went away, and I started making a lot more money on those Monday outings. So it was really, it was pretty cool. And when you're young and you're starting, you don't have a lot of money, and you're trying to make your way. It was really very exciting to be able to have money, buy my mom and dad a few little gifts because they sacrificed so much for me as an amateur. And then I met my accountant, and she right away said, "We need to put this money in a retirement fund." I'm like, "What? I'm only 20 years old. I'm not going to retire yet." Because she said, "Most athletes spend all their money, and you need to put it in their retirement." And so I started putting money in retirement at age 20.
Well, how fortunate that, in those years that you got that kind of counsel. I mean, today's
Yeah.
players, they have a team. They have their nutrition coach and they have their putting coach and they have their financial advisor and so on and so forth. And you were basically one person that it sounds like we're really fortunate to be with the right people.
Absolutely. And my dad was that way. And my mom, they pretty much they didn't spend money unless they had it. I don't think my dad owned a credit card. He always wanted to, if he could afford it, he'd pay cash, or he'd save his money and pay cash. He never believed in being in debt. And I think I learned a lot from my dad because of just what he taught me growing up.
I guess you could say that that your family was really important to your career and really kind of set the foundation for who you are today.
Absolutely. My dad was just a hardworking, quality person, and my mom was a full-time mom. She took good care of us. Always had clean clothes. Always had dinner on the table, breakfast, lunch whenever we were home. She was just full-time, great mom, and sacrificed a lot because we really couldn't afford everything. I remember there were days we'd sit at a table and my dad would talk about our finances and he'd say, I'm going to buy this and I've got money for that and I'm going to buy this. And then we've got money for Nancy to play a couple of tournaments in the summertime, money for my mom, just stuff that he felt he had to organize all that for us. And so, when you're growing up and you don't have a lot, you don't really realize that you don't have a lot because you have great parents that always make you feel safe and you always had food on the table. And my dad worked hard and I spent a lot of time with him at his auto body shop in the summertime. I would answer his phone. I'd clean the windows on his shop and pretty much hang out with him and see how he treated his customers. He was just really, really agreeable to them. The customer was always right in my dad's eyes. And if he didn't paint something correctly or if the customer didn't think it was just the way he wanted it, my dad said, I'll do it again. And I think I watched that. And I saw a lot of great character in my dad and probably learned a lot when, you really don't realize how much you're learning from your parents by watching them.
Well, again, I go back to your first year. You're 20 years old and you're winning 9 tournaments. I mean, that attention to detail and commitment to the process had to come from your parents. I mean, at 20, what do we know, right? You
Yeah.
obviously were quite skilled at the game of golf, but to kind of keep it all together in your mind is, that's the part of the game that we forget how important that is. I mean, how fortunate you were to have had that again, that foundation.
Yeah. And I was really fortunate because I always wanted to do things that made my mom and dad proud of me. And so I always, wanted to do the right thing. My dad always told me to think twice before I made a decision because usually the second time you thought about it, you might change your mind. And he was just always like that, always giving me good advice. And I know when I was playing golf as a young person, his advice to me was, never have an excuse for playing poorly the next day if you stayed up late or I never drank. I just never acquired a taste for it. So he always said, you don't have to be asleep at 10 o'clock, but if you want to win, you've got to be resting at 10 o'clock, legs elevated, resting and just getting ready for the next day. And I really pretty much always did that. When I knew I was going to compete, I always prepared myself that way because I wanted to win. I felt like I could win, but I wanted to make sure I didn't have any excuses the next day. If I wasn't playing well, the only excuse is, golf's that way, and I didn't play well.
You talked about the woman that you beat for the New Mexico Amateur being very kind and understanding. Once you got on tour, these are women that were trying to make a living out there, and here you come in and win 9 tournaments and 5 in a row. How was that relationship?
Well, probably my peers that I was playing amateur golf with, and some of them probably didn't like it very much. But I know players like Joanne Carner, Kathy Whitworth, Donna Capone, Judy Rankin, Carol Mann. Those are the players that really wanted the next generation to carry the torch, to help carry the tour and help it grow more. Because, of course, they knew if we could do that, we could raise more money and our purses would be bigger if we could do that. And they were always very kind to me. And Joanne Carner was my idol. as I watched her play as an amateur when my dad would call me in to watch ladies golf on TV, which was not very often.
Right.
So when I could watch Joanne, I love the way she played. She was aggressive. You never knew if she was playing good or bad. She always had this great attitude, and when I watched her, I really learned a lot from her. That golf's a game, only a game, and you've got to enjoy it. And I felt like she was always enjoying it, and so I really loved watching her play golf because she had such a great attitude.
How about advice? Were they forthcoming in that? Nancy, can I suggest this or anything like that?
Yes, they were. Carner was probably the one I got to play with the most, and I beat her a few times. She beat me a few times, but she was always there to help. If it looked like I was making a mistake in a ruling or something, she would stop me and help me. And that's just how the players were. Donna Capone was a good friend, but has become a great friend now. As we get older and we get to spend more time together, she was just, always there for any of the young players, just to give them advice if they needed help. And of course, we got to play with them. I like to sign up with them when they had the sign up sheet for us to play a practice round. So I would sign up with them. And my dad always said, if you play with the best, you'll get better. And so I always tried to sign up with some of the great players on the LPGA tour so that I could watch them and learn from them, how they play, how they thought, because you can really watch a great player and how they think. And so I was able to do that, and they were very, welcoming that I would want to play with them.
I'm still amazed that, again, at 20 years old, with this meteoric first year you had, and everything that comes with it. I mean, the cover of Sports Illustrated, and people wanting your autograph and your photo, and come over here and do this Monday thing. I don't know how a 21-year-old holds that all together. Was that challenging?
I've never been very shy, so I think that probably helped me a little bit. Because when I went into the press room and talked to the press, I pretty much, once they asked me a question, I was pretty honest with my answers. And I knew, too, there were times, I felt like the press shouldn't have been talking to me because I was like 10th or 11th. And I felt like they should talk to the players that were playing better than I was. But they really wanted to know why I wasn't playing well. And because I did talk a lot, they got a lot of information out of me. But it was a eye-opening, great experience because once I started winning, I was winning money. I was doing commercials. A lot of the attention was coming to me, but I always knew that whatever the LPGA asked of me, I wanted to do it because it was helping my tour grow. I remember when I came out on the LPGA tour and wondered why we weren't making as much money as a PGA tour when we were doing the same thing. They were working just as hard. And of course, our purses did elevate, but we got to where the guys were, and then they went higher. So, I still don't understand. Oh, I do kind of understand that, you've got to have a player that's going to attract attention to your tour. That brings more people in the gate, and that's where you get the money and more sponsorships. And I get that, but still, the USGA, finally, the U.S. Women's Open, they make the same purse as the men's. I don't think that's changed in the last year, but the last few years we've been able to make the same purse the guys do. And I just feel like that's the way it should be all the time. And I know there's some big sponsors out there that do PGA events, but I think if they had a taste of the LPGA, I feel like they would jump on board with us too, or with us, because we have players that, they enjoy playing in the pro-ams, they participate. I think probably a little bit more than most of the PGA players, not all of them. There's a lot of great PGA players out there, but I think the LPGA is really good at that, at entertaining the customers on Pro-Am Day. I think that's very important.
I've had an opportunity to play in some Pro-Ams with both PGA Tour and LPGA players, and the ones I remember most were the ones I played with LPGA players because they're for the most part they're very welcoming, very attentive, interested really in what you have to say, and because it's basically a practice day, their game is not as important that day, and what can I do to help you? And it's a very welcoming atmosphere, as you mentioned.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad you had a good experience because I know when I've gone to rookie orientation, in years past, I've always told the players, you got to do your practice day on Tuesday and Wednesday your entertainment day, because all those pro-am people that come to play with you, they need to leave there talking about the LPGA Tour so that they can bring other people to those pro-ams the next year. And they need to have a good experience. Once you've helped your players on the green and you're done, then when they go to the tee, if you're waiting, then do your practicing. But you really need to entertain, because those people are the ones that help those purses grow and that give you a living. And I feel like I've always encouraged the players, the rookies, to understand that, because that's why I did what I did on the LPGA Tour. It was all about the tour, helping it grow. It wasn't about Nancy Lopez, because I promise you there are days I didn't want to do what the LPGA asked me to do. And I was like a little kid kicking and screaming and stomping my feet. But when I got there, I did my best job. But it was hard sometimes, because back when I was winning, I felt like I was carrying the LPGA Tour on my shoulders. And when I was asked to do something, I felt like I needed to do it, even though, like I said, I didn't want to all the time. I did it because it was the right thing to do to help my tour.
Outside of your dad's advice, which is just brilliant and so succinct, if if you had to talk about the best piece of advice you ever got, is that something that comes to mind?
The best advice I ever got was not just from my dad, it was from Lee Trevino. I had a very unorthodox swing that was, a lot of people commented it all the time. And they said, Nancy, you need to work on that swing because you're not going to go very far with that swing. And when I met Lee Trevino, he came to my hometown of Roswell, New Mexico, and did a clinic. And my dad asked him to watch me. And when he watched my swing, he looked at me and he looked at my dad and he said, when it stops working, then you change it. And so I pretty much followed what Lee Trevino said, and I didn't change it. It worked. And I was able to make good contact with the ball when I needed to. And so I think his advice was the greatest advice I ever had. Then my dad, when I started playing golf, he looked at me one day and he was always positive. My dad never was negative. He never made me feel bad about not playing well. But he looked at me one day and he said, "You're going to lose a lot more than you win. So you better get used to it." And he said, "And you've got to be a good loser and you've got to be a good winner." And like I said, that wasn't a negative. He just wanted to prepare me for, the realization that you're not going to win all the time. And of course, I started winning a lot early. And then I know my second year, the question from the press was, was I that good? Was I a flash in the pan? Did I know about the sophomore slump? And I think they were trying to get my mind wrapped around all that negative stuff. And I kind of use it as a positive, and then it kind of made me angry. And I said, I'm going to try and show them that I'm not just that 1 year golfer. And my second year in tour, I ended up winning 8 tournaments. So I think I proved them wrong, that I wasn't just a flash in the pan, and it wasn't just luck. So it was a good second year for me too.
Nancy, you're extremely forthcoming about everything. I mean, before we started talking here, I asked you if there was anything you didn't want to talk about, and you said you pretty much handle every question you get. So, I wouldn't say you're open book, but there's probably a couple of secrets. What would we be surprised to learn about you that people don't know?
Hmm. I think a lot of people, they don't know that I'm adopted. I've written a book that I have not finished. It's been years. I don't know if you knew Rhonda Glenn. She was my ghostwriter with me, and she was with the USGA and wonderful. She ended up dying from breast cancer, and I probably should have gotten more motivated about finishing it because we were doing a great job with it, and she was just awesome. But a lot of people don't know that I was adopted. That Domingo who raised me was not my father, but he was my real uncle. His sister was my mom, and she couldn't keep me, so my dad adopted me, her brother, which a lot of people don't know, and that might surprise them. But still have blood, still have Lopez in me. So I didn't know I was adopted till I was about 7. My mom and dad that adopted me, my mom finally told me, and when she felt like I could understand it. So I would always call my real mom Aunt because she was my aunt. I was growing up. And so when I found out, I was fine with it. I don't think it bothered me. I was glad that I had the mom and dad that I had. And so I never looked at my aunt as my mom.
How you you're a wonderful story. I mean, you really are. There's so many different layers to you, and we know you simply as Nancy Lopez, the incredible LPGA golfer. But as we have more questions when we get together for the First Tee VIP dinner at Del Paso Country Club, now my mind is just racing with all kinds of other questions. But,
Well, I have to tell you, Frank, you know that I'm an actress now.
yes, yes. I was going to ask you what was it like
The
being?
only reason I say that is because now everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, I saw you in Happy Gilmore. You were so serious. I've never seen you that serious." And then if you Google me, it comes up actress first and golfer second. I think that's hilarious.
What was that experience like? What was
Adam Sandler was awesome. He was directing us when Nellie and I were in the same. We were on at the same time, and it was just a lot of fun. I was so nervous. I only really had one line in the scene that we did, and then we had the second line when he asked us about going to lunch at Benihana's. But I was really nervous because I wanted to do the right job, and then when Shooter McGavin had his hissy fit, it was hard not to laugh. I mean, you've got to sit there and with a serious look. And we probably shot that scene maybe 30 times, and Shooter got better and better. And every time he did it, got funnier and funnier. And you just don't know when the camera's on you. So you have to really be serious. And it was really hard, but it was really fun. And I really loved meeting Adam Sandler. I didn't know what to expect. You don't really know when you like somebody and you watch them. And so when I met him, he's very humble, very, very intelligent, but just really, really kind. And so I was really pleased that he was that way. And we came away from that, went to the premiere in New York, and we got to be with him again. And his wife, who was lovely too, was in the movie. She was his daughter, who was really his daughter, dance teacher. So she was her dance teacher, and that was really his wife. And then his other daughter was the one that was in rehab with him that he conversed with most of the movie. And then I think there were two of his sons at the table when they had the table scene. So he had all his family in there, and the premiere was really fun. We got to see all the golfers, and it was fun to watch all of us who are golfers trying to act. And I asked Freddie Couples what he was eating. Was it any good? And he said it was really pretty good.
So over 50 tour wins, and you're known now as an actress.
It's really funny because I get recognized. I mean, I get recognized, but now it's even more because of the movie.
Sure.
And I was Dr. Silver. I wasn't really myself. I was just Dr. Silver in this movie. So it was really fun. And I thought Nellie did a great job too.
Nancy, who inspires you to be better?
There were golfers on the tour, Joanne Carner, Pat Bradley, Patty Sheehan. When I played with those ladies, I knew I had to bring my best game out on Sunday. If I was in the final group with them, I knew that I had to bring my best game out because they were going to bring their best game out to try and beat me. So I think those were the players that really brought the best out of me in golf. And it was fun playing with them. The competition was fierce but friendly. And it was really fun to play with them. And now, now that our careers are over, we started the Legends Tour, which I don't plan it very much right now. After I had my shoulder surgery a couple years ago, I just kind of got unmotivated about going out playing because, your body starts hurting, and they keep wanting me to play in the senior U.S. Women's Open, but my feet are so bad. I'm going to go see a doctor and see if maybe we can get them to stop hurting. But I have two new knees, shoulder, it was just fixed. And my feet hurt. So I think when my knees hurt, I didn't realize how much my feet hurt. So now I'd just like to be able to walk. And everyone says, well, you can ride a cart in the Women's Senior Open. I said, I don't want to win a major championship driving up on a golf cart. I can't do that. I want to walk and I want to play. And that's how I want to win a major championship.
Not only are you an actress, you're a bionic actress.
Yeah, I am. And my hips
Nancy,
bother me a little bit right now. Hopefully, it's not going to be an issue.
Nancy Lopez is coming to Sacramento for the First Tee Invitational, First Tee Greater Sacramento Invitational. She will be the honorary chair. She and I will sit down after dinner at Del Paso Country Club on Monday, October 20th, to talk a little bit more and find out some more secrets. And then at the golf tournament the next day, we'll do another Q&A before breakfast, and then she will be available for a little clinic and photos on the golf course. So if you want to meet a brand new actress who also plays a little golf, you check out firstsacramento.org, and you can find out how you can be involved, whether you want to be involved as a player or come and be at the dinner, or maybe just support First Tee. Going back again, Nancy, this is an incredible chapter, and they affect the lives of about 60,000, and that's a huge number, 60,000 juniors every year. And as you mentioned, it's really important, but it's a youth development organization that uses the game of golf to help these juniors find a better life.
Yeah, First Tee is just wonderful. And, it's important because I think the people that are there, they know how to play golf. They know the life lessons of golf. They know how to handle the pressures of golf. Because I think what our young kids need to know is that golf is just a game. You want to play well. If you don't play well, my dad always told me, and we kind of teach this. I have a company called Nancy Lopez Golf Adventures, and our mantra is play happy. And that's what my dad taught me. He told me I played better when I played happy. Now, that doesn't mean that when you miss a shot, you're going to laugh about it, but it's about the attitude of what you take after you miss a shot. What attitude you take to the next shot. I think we need to teach our young kids that, angry isn't good. Figuring out how to hit the next shot great is better. And that's what my dad always taught me. So I think for me, to be able to send that message to the kids and to the parents, I think sometimes parents are a big issue. I shouldn't say big issue, but an issue because they want their kids to perform and do well. Well, they're not always going to be perfect. I raised 3 daughters in sports. As long as they give 100%, you have to encourage them. And I know my dad, whenever I didn't play well, I always tell the story because this is how my dad was. You prepare for a Women's U.S. Open so hard. You practice and work hard. And I remember playing in Philadelphia. My dad was there, and I really prepared for that tournament. Golf course didn't suit my eye. I didn't play well. On Friday afternoon, after I finished my second round, I knew I wasn't going to make the cut. I was probably like 12 over par. And I walked off very disappointed because I wanted to play for my dad. I wanted to play for myself. And I walked off the green and I said, Dad, and with tears in my eyes, I said, Dad, I am so sorry I didn't play better. And he gave me this great big hug. And that's what parents need to do, is always hug your kids when they don't play well, because then they're going to want to work harder. But he hugged me and he just kind of chuckled to himself, and he said, honey, it's okay. I didn't want to see you at 25 over par anyway. And I went from crying to laughing, because if it's all right with my dad that I, didn't play well, then life was good. And I think parents need to always realize, don't put pressure on your kids. Encourage them. When they don't play well, I promise you, they didn't mean to play poorly. And that's what my dad always said to me too. He says, I know you're out there and you're working hard and you're giving 100%. That's all that matters. Never give up. And that's why I think I played as well as I did on the LPGA tour, because of the attitude of my dad. I knew if I didn't play well, I wasn't going to get beat up when I was finished verbally. I knew I was going to get a hug, and he was just going to say, let's go work harder. And he was just going to be positive. So I never feared failure. Our kids need to fail to learn. And we don't need to, just mouth at them that they didn't do this or why did they do that. We need to say, let's just go work harder and give them a positive feeling of when they do not play well, that they can still do better next time.
Nancy Lopez, you're a treasure. I'm going to go out and play happy every time. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. You know, the word icon is kind of thrown around more than it should be, but you certainly are an iconic figure, not only in the world of golf, but as people could hear today in the game of
Oh,
life.
thank you.
So thank you so much for spending some
Thanks,
time
Frank.
with us. Look forward to seeing you in October.
I do too. Thanks so much, Frank.
Bye bye.
Bye.